Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. I'm your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. This show goes beyond cryptids and Bigfoot. We take you down a much deeper rabbit hole. We take on subjects beyond our very own realms and realities. We look at strange phenomena and the unexplained, such as time travel, alien and UFO existence, strange hauntings and mysteries, as well as the paranormal. We focus on how all these things, all these rabbit holes, come full circle. Tonight, my guest, Tim Maile, paranormal investigator and more. We'll get into that just a little bit. I'll be joined tonight by the lovely ladies from the paranormal podcast called The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcasts. You can find them on YouTube. Please subscribe. Also subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, as well as Texas Front Porch, both found on YouTube. If you like our content, the super chat is open. Yes, the super chat is open, and after the show ends, there's something called the super thanks. If you care to drop a couple dollars or donate, that would be awesome. But sharing us out and subscribing works just as well. You can find us on Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio, and KPNL Radio. Thank you to the lovely Ann Celine out in Oregon for that. And you can find us on most all of your podcasting platforms. With that being said, we go over our lineup. I'm going to cut down the music here. Cut down this music. And on Mondays is Texas Front Porch. That's found at 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Jason McLean does something called Mysterious Library on Untold AM Radio. That's found at 10 o'clock in the East. We have a new time slot for Jason McLean Questions Everything, 9 o'clock in the East on Wednesdays. That's now a 2-hour show. Thursdays, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. Later on in the evening at 9, the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. That's at 9 in the East. Can't get enough of the booze. Well, they combine a little woo, excuse me, on Friday nights, 9 in the East, the Blondes and the Booze and the Woo. And don't forget our friend Jessica Jones. You can find her on the weekends, Spaced Out Radio, 10 o'clock in the East. Thanks for that. I'm going to bring up Krista and Brandy. And it looks like I got another person joining us. The Bearded Wonder is backstage as well. I'll bring him up in a minute. Krista and Brandy, how's it going?
Wonderful.
Bracing for the snow.
Yeah,
we all are. You know, I told you guys backstage that a couple years ago, I braced for a big winter storm. Went out, got the salt, got the heat, got a new shovel. I got up super early because I had to be somewhere. Didn't get a lick of snow, not one lick. Then of course, you know what happened? The following week, out of nowhere, boom, we got dumped on about 12 to 15 inches. So
yep.
it was one of those things. And I know a guy that's not even used to the snow. Another guy, he lives down south. Y'all know him. He wears a beard and a cowboy hat. My buddy Tex.
Hey, Ted.
What's this snow stuff y'all keep talking about? I don't.
Woo, I'm already covered over here.
Yeah.
Only snow we see down here is snow cones. What do you?
Yeah, you got the flavor covered snow cone.
Yeah, we try not to eat the yellow snow.
Well, I figured you would come up with that one.
Right.
You beat me to the punch, so I have to admit I was thinking about it.
They are actually talking about us getting some snow tomorrow. So it's been raining. You know, everybody's been getting snow. We've been getting rain. My backyard's flooded so much it's up on my patio, about 4 feet up on my patio. So my dog's got to swim out to go to the bathroom. But it's we're actually talking about some snow. I mean, of course, y'all know you were talking about 12 or 15 inches. We get 2 and we shut everything down. I don't know. So
Yeah, well,
You
here
know,
in Michigan, we do trek through it. Now, I must say this: the first snow of the year, everybody in Michigan forgets how to drive. If you've been living here your whole life, and it doesn't make any sense. These people, when it snows, they still
Right.
forgot how to drive. They're on your rear end of your car. They're fishtailing. Even the people in the big 4x4 trucks are still speeding like nobody's business.
yeah,
But
they think
anyway,
those 4-wheel drives are bulletproof. I don't understand it.
yeah, well, that's a topic for another discussion when you're driving through
Yeah,
the inner
I
cities of
remember
Detroit,
those
man.
days.
Yeah, I think we all have an inner city story or so, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Gene Hudson says, "Not me. She's got no snow, and she's in well, I don't know if she's got snow or yeah. I'm sure Jean's covered. She's of course up there and upper over the bridge. But enough of that. But I got somebody. Our guest is probably familiar with snow. I'm guessing Wisconsin gets dumped on, and I'm
Oh,
going to bring up Mr. Tim Maile, and I said his last name right, thanks to Brandy. I was saying it wrong all week.
yeah.
Hey,
Hey, Tim.
thanks for having me.
Damn.
Nobody gets that last name right without a little guidance. So
Hey,
Yeah,
I
well-
did. When you came on Blondes, I did get it right. Thank you.
Well, here's the thing, Tim. I've got a friend. His name is Joe. I used to work with him, and his last name is spelled Maile, but he pronounced it Maile. And I've been calling him Maile my whole life. So when I seen this, I said, "Oh, Tim Maile," and then it's Miley. So I got that corrected.
Isn't
And,
Cyrus?
and
yes,
and thanks for joining us this evening on Beyond BMR, which is a show that talks about really everything.
Mhm.
And I have to thank Brandy and Krista for hooking you up on the show. Without them, I wouldn't have thought about contacting you because I'm newer in the paranormal world, and a lot of our platforms are. That's why we got the booze on with us because they add that element. So glad to have you, my man. So how is the weather in Wisconsin?
well, I'll tell you, I bought a new snowblower about 3 years ago, and I've used it twice. So I think I'm the good luck charm. Um, we were supposed to get 8 inches of snow last week, and I woke up to about 3. And the older I get, the less I complain about not getting snow because I don't
Right.
need it anyway. But yeah, there are times, it's only January, so we got about 2.5 months yet to wake up to 1.5 feet of snow, and then once it gets done dumping on us, then it heads over to Michigan and it gets you guys.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go. And I was doing a little bit of reading up on you a little bit, and Tim, you're into a lot of different things. Well, paranormal is your forte. I read that you've done like over 300 investigations. You published a couple books. And there's a bunch of other things I got written down here, but instead of me going through it, why don't you give a brief introduction to our audience?
Well, I have published 2 books. I wouldn't say that they're bestsellers. They were self-published. The only one that's available now is The Endless Road. Basically talks about my life from child until now, and the things that I experienced. You mentioned paranormal investigation. In 2006, I bought the home that I'm in still to this day, and within a few days, I had voices and bangs in the wall and footsteps, and I was 31 years old, and I never dealt with anything paranormal before. It was in my family. It was we don't talk about it because religion, and if we die, you go to heaven or hell. That's the end of the conversation. So that was the way I was brought up. So I never really gave 2 thoughts to anything paranormal. And here I am at 31 dealing with it and kind of just forced into it. I tried to get some help. I ran into the paranormal shows by accident. I'm a big wrestling nerd, and you'll see me drinking out of this cup. It's a WrestleMania cup. I'm a big wrestling nerd, and one night I was watching Sci-Fi Channel because they had ECW on at the time, and a commercial came on for Ghost Hunters. And I remember stopping and just watching this and going, holy crap. I didn't know people did this. And I set the DVR, fell in love with the show. They started talking about TAPS family teams. So I looked up on the old Google machine back in 2006. And back then there was about 12 paranormal teams in Wisconsin. And now if you do that, you're going to waste your whole day looking through them all. But I contacted a few of them and none of them got back to me, which is actually a blessing in disguise because it made me educate myself. And it really wasn't about let's, start a team at the time. It was about, I have a 30-year mortgage. I have to figure out what's going on here because I can't just leave my house. After about a year, the thought did creep into my mind, what if there's other people out there that need help that aren't getting responses from teams that say they want to help? And so that's how Fox Cities Paranormal Team was born. 2008. We've been doing this for 15 years now. Mostly residential investigations because of how I got into the field. I don't want people to feel alone, and I don't want people to not have someone to turn to. So, 300 plus. We're in there somewhere. I stopped counting, to be honest with you. And it's the most rewarding thing that I've done. Some of the things that we've been able to do and the families we've been able to help, and the experiences that we've had, and writing the books, and it was on Paranormal Witness over a decade ago, but that really opened up some doors, and now I can call some of the the great people in this field great friends, and I get to do some events and stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm sure we'll talk about events and dogs and all that stuff, but that's how I got my start in the paranormal field. And the paranormal field, as I always say, has given me far more than I could ever give back to it.
What I like too about what you made mention of is giving back to people and helping people that have nowhere to turn. Because, quite frankly, across our platforms, any of our channels that you go to, we're about sending that message that, hey, first of all, it's fine and dandy to hear about our researchers and their work, or you hear about an experiencer's experiences. But a lot of us, myself, probably Texas has some experiences, but going somewhere to turn is what got me involved in this first and foremost, and finding a platform where I could express what I was feeling, what I wasn't feeling, without feeling or being ridiculed. So that's kind of how I evolved in this. And then I hooked up with Tex. I met Tex 5-6 years ago. We've been doing this together for a couple of years, but we became friends. And it's a great outlet. That's the number one.
That's kind of pushing it, but okay.
Well, half-assed friends, I guess. And, we kind of, we got a good thing going here on our channels. And I commend you for that, because I'm trying not to laugh. I'm trying to be professional. Hello to everybody in chat. But at any rate, thanks for that. I do appreciate that, man. That's the Tim, by the way. Now, I wasn't saying appreciate.
I thought we were still talking to Tex.
I would never say I appreciate Tex.
It's a different feeling when you go into somebody's home that is dealing with these things. It takes a special kind of situation where a stranger will get to the point where they're like, you know what? Yeah, I'd like to have 4 or 5 strangers come into the house and walk around and figure out what's happening. Sometimes just being that first person to actually listen and hear them, you can see the weight of the world just lift off their shoulders. So every case is different. We're working on a couple right now. We're working on one that I've been working on for the team's been working on for about 4 months, and it's frustrating the heck out of me. Because we can't come to a resolution. But, the only thing we ever promise a client is that we'll do our very best. And that means, we'll keep going until we can't anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And that's great to hear. You follow it, you take it from the first step to the last step, and hopefully there's some resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I mentioned, I noticed you had like 300 investigations. If you wouldn't mind, if you could maybe speak on a couple of them, because I know that our audience likes a nice story or a nice experience that they can maybe be reflective on. And if you want to walk us through a couple, I think we'd like to kick back and listen.
Sure. I actually talked about this with a friend of mine today. She had run across the Paranormal Witness episode on Peacock. If you go to Peacock and look up Paranormal Witness Season 3, The Innocent, that's the one that I was on. It was a home that was in a very small town, and they called us in because they were seeing an older man and a younger child in the home. And it was one of those things where the kids were terrified. Their teenager got pulled out of his bed by his ankles. And, they asked us to come in. We didn't really have time to do any kind of research. So we're talking like 3 days. We threw a team together and we're in the home for the first time. And within minutes of being in the home, one of our investigators saw a face in the basement. And then later in the night, we saw a big black mass or shadow walk or run out of the root cellar, which for those that don't live in the north, there's a lot of people that don't know what that is. It's kind of a room off to the side of your basement. When I'm down south and I do a talk and I talk about the root cellar, I get some weird looks. But there were some things that happened in there where we had gotten some answers through EVP. And the first night we were there, we got a response that said murder. And at the time, we didn't know any sort of history of the home. We did our investigation. We did our research. We did our review. And came back to the client with like 2 or 3 clips of things that we had found. And they asked us to come back in. And in the meantime, they had gone to their local library and found an interesting newspaper clip. There was a murder in the home. I guess it would have been 47 years before we were there. 1967. It's a little foggy. We haven't been there since 2000.
Yeah.
But in 1967, a foster child, 2 years old, was had some horrible things done to him, and I won't get into that. But ended up being murdered by his foster child. We found the little boy's name. The little boy's name was Chris. And we went back in that second time with the express reason of getting him to trust us. In my mind, he was a 2-year-old boy, and every adult in his world that he should have been able to trust let him down. Mm-hmm. And why should he trust us? And the first thing I wanted to do was find out, what do you want us to call you? Because in the newspaper clipping, his first name was Walter, his middle name was Kristen, and I thought it was odd that in the paper it said he preferred to be called Chris. A 2-year-old boy saying, "Hey, call me by my middle name." That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but we went with it. And during the course of the evening, we did get a response from a little boy that said, "My name is Chris." And single most heartbreaking piece of audio that I've ever heard. We worked on that case for 2 years, and really there was a time where I kind of felt like we were letting the family down because we were not getting any further. We weren't getting any closer to answers. And we got rid of a lot of people on our team during that time because it became a fight to investigate that home. It wasn't about helping anymore. It was about experiencing. And that well with Todd and I. Todd Arnold runs the team with me. So we got rid of a few people on the team because we didn't want to be that kind of team. Mm-hmm. So 2 years later, came across a medium. His name is Scotty Rorick. We had never worked together before. I was doing a radio show on his network at the time, and I was told, "Hey, Scotty's a medium." So I called Scotty, and I said, "I've been working on this case for 2 years. I'm wondering if you could give us some help." And he said, "I don't want to know anymore. Yes, I'll help you guys. Don't tell me anything." And he actually came to my house for dinner, met the team, and then he got into our car and drove there. And the story he tells to this day is he says, "I'm really, really happy you guys weren't serial killers because I had no idea where I was going." But we did. We started the 45-minute drive to the investigation. It was our 5th time there. And on the way there, Scotty was mapping out the house on his leg in the back seat for Todd and telling him where everything was and where we had experienced things. And that evening was the first time I ever experienced transmediumship. Scotty didn't know anything going in. And I was able to talk to this little boy who told me his name was Chris.
Wow.
And the first words out of his mouth after he told me his name was, "You're Tim and I trust you." And we've been working for 2 years to get that little boy to trust us. So to be honest with you, I'm a big softie, and the tears flowed.
Yeah.
That meant a lot to me. We ended up, through Scotty's help, moving this little boy along, and also the old man. We worked to clear the home of him. I wish I could tell you how we did it, but it's a blur. It really is. I look back at it, and like, I give all the credit to Scotty on that. Scotty was like 80%, I was 20%.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an amazing experience. I'm friends with that family to this day.
Yeah.
They haven't had any issues. They're actually selling the house now, and if I had some more money, I might even buy it. But they're selling the house now. They haven't had any issues in the home since, and I've watched that family grow up. I mean, their kids were like 8 and 9 when we did this, and now they're all starting families, and I feel old. But that's part of the paranormal that people don't tell you. You get into this, and you help the family, and they become a family.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, Tim, it's like a lot of times when you go on a podcast or somebody's show, listening in, a lot of people, now I get, excuse me, a lot of this is, there's some entertainment value. I get that. But also with the story you just said, and I'm sure you've got others, but if you sit back and take a look at it, there really is a human element involved, because we're talking about people here that are going through some traumatic experiences, and it's even worse when a family turns a blind eye. And I thank you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
it was a case that honestly changed me as a person and as an investigator. Obviously for the better. It was one of those cases where I think I finally realized, hey, wait a minute, we can help the spirit too. Because up until then, I was single focused on let's help the family. It really made me understand, what we can accomplish in this field, not only for the family, but for the spirit itself. And as a kind of a follow on that, eventually it did end up on Paranormal Witness. And Chris's story was told, and that's the reason we agreed to do it.
yeah.
But I did an event in Petoskey, Michigan the following year, and I was a part of a public ghost hunt for the event. And I believe I was on the 3rd floor, and there was a medium on the ground floor that I had not worked with before. And while he was doing his part of the investigation with the public, he said that there was a little boy sitting next to him on the bench. And this little boy would not stop asking questions. And a lot of the people that were there as a part of the ghost hunt, they knew me, they knew my story. So a lot of this was they were piecing it together. And at one point, the medium's name is Skylar. At one point, Skylar looked to his, I believe, left, and asked the little boy in front of everybody, "Who are you?" And Skylar reported back to the group that he was with. He said, "This little boy just told me his name was Chris, and his friend Tim, the big guy, is upstairs." And that one hits me, because I remember when we moved Chris, or asked him to move along, and I told him, I said, "If you get scared, you can always visit me. I have no problem with that." And to know that he was there, and he, took me up on the offer. That case, for 2 years, I was obsessed with finding closure for that little boy. And that was closure for me when we did that event, and Skylar passed that message along to me. So Chris still holds a very, very dear place in my heart. And honestly, that case and being on Paranormal Witness opened up all the doors that I'm able to walk through today and do events and make potographs for Pooches the success that it is. None of that happens without that case and the ability to reach a bigger audience.
Now you can still watch this episode.
Yeah.
Today.
If you have Peacock, You can go there and search Paranormal Witness. It's season 3, The Innocent. It's on YouTube too, but you have to pay for it.
Mhm.
But yeah,
I downloaded Peacock. It was free, so I recommend doing that.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Brandy. And I got to ask you, Tim, it's like when you're doing these investigations, like these stories that you have, and I'm sure you've got many, and I know some people that are into that perform professionals at remote viewing and such. And I know if they get into a really deep case, it takes a lot out of them. They're drained for a couple days, perhaps. When you get into something like this, I suppose it's the same with the paranormal. I mean, when you're into something like this, does it take a lot out of you? Is it? Do you have to like re-energize and prepare for your next investigation? Do you have to kind of turn that off and move into the next one, with another open mind and not worry about the last case?
Just the human aspect of it. You're always thinking about each case.
Yeah.
They all mean something to me. Honestly, when we first started, we had so many cases. I mean, it was just one after another, and we really didn't have time to breathe. The more I do this, the more I investigate the paranormal. I don't think it's any big secret for people that have heard me talk. I do have some gifts. I do have some abilities that strengthen every time I get to do this. I would never label myself as a medium or a psychic. I, from time to time, pick up on things. But I will tell you that an investigation wipes me out.
Mhm.
We did an investigation Saturday night, and I got home with the intent of downloading all of the audio and getting right into the video review, and I couldn't move off the couch on Sunday.
Mhm.
I was just absolutely wiped out, and finally got everything uploaded on Monday and raring to go, and starting review. But it does. It takes a lot out of me. I know it takes a lot out of others that we work with, and it's. I guess it's part of the game. You just get used to it after a point.
Well, Brandy and I actually, we did a deal Saturday night, and it wasn't really paranormal, but we made the comment that even after doing that, we had the paranormal hangover. And Tim, you get what the paranormal hangover is, and that's what it feels like.
Definitely, it does. It takes, especially when you get a really really fantastic medium or a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
They really have to watch how much energy they're giving. I've seen some of them get just completely depleted, and you start to worry about them at that point. But
right.
Also, the longer you do this, you know your boundaries. Like when I first started, if I felt uneasy in a home, I was stunned and would not leave. It was my job to figure this out for that family. But now I also have to worry about my own health. So I'll get out of the building for a little bit. I'll get back in and finish the job. But and this year's been a struggle because folks that know me, I have had health issues for the last 9 months that I am not happy about. But I also have to be cognizant of that and watch out for my own health.
You're doing better now. I kind of seen on Facebook that you're.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you I'm good. They think I got an infection now in the foot. So
I read that. I seen that.
My foot is probably about 4 times the size it should be.
Wow.
You can't see it because I got a sweatshirt on, but there's a pick line here, and I got to put IV antibiotics into me a couple times a day.
Wow.
But we're still pushing forward, and I'm not letting it stop me from doing the things that I love to do. So
right.
It's just it's one of those things I got to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep, for sure.
Well, where do you want to go from here, Rob? Do you want to start from the beginning of his story?
Well, we got 30 minutes here. We don't
have enough time.
Do we have enough time? So the girls say you have a big story. So we take a break in 22 minutes. How long does this go?
I would say wait and do his sad story after the break.
Yeah,
Okay.
his triumph story,
Yeah.
his
Well, you know what? Okay, I got it. We can do that. So what we can do, I know Tim's got a lot of other stories. Now we've heard this first one got us all thinking for that. Is there any stories where well, tell us 300 investigations, right? You tell me what's something that really, I mean, maybe it kind of like creeped you out, but not maybe in a negative way with children. Is there anything out there that you're like, wow, you that even just blew your drawers off? Like, holy cow, this really happens? I mean, something that seems almost not believable, like we've always heard.
I guess it really comes down to the first time that a spirit that you can't see, obviously, that makes contact with you.
Yeah,
The first time I was pushed, the first time I was punched,
Mhm.
those types of things. It's funny when people ask to join the team, one of the first things that they'll tell you is nothing scares me. And I got to tell you, you cannot promise me that until something happens like that,
Mhm.
because you don't know how you're going to react. And it's strange because it happens so quickly, but by the time you have a chance to react, it's
Right.
gone. It's over. Um, I remember one of the first times I got pushed was in a museum here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We were brought in. They wanted to do an exhibit, a traveling paranormal exhibit. So they brought us in to interview us and get to know what we did. And during the course of that, they wanted to go on an investigation with us. And as much as that was exciting for me, we couldn't let that happen because everything we do is residential. And I got to worry about the client and their confidentiality, their privacy.
Right.
But I did offer up. I said, I know there's nothing claims or there's no claims here. There's no stories from here. But if you want us to come in and set up and do an investigation at the museum, we can do that and you can join us. And they jumped at the chance. Well, we did the first investigation, and I think we ended up with 10 or 12 pieces of audio from a building that wasn't supposed to have any activity. And to see the faces, of the museum staff while we were playing all of this for them, and just some people questioning their own beliefs, it'll make you do that. But during the course of the second investigation there, I got pushed in the back. We were again working with Scotty. Some of the best investigations we've done have been with Scotty Rourke. And we were upstairs where they had everything in storage, and he was picking up on a military. His name was Lieutenant Edgar Dunham. His uniform was in this storage, and he wanted his uniform on display. So he kept leading Scotty to tell me where this was. So I get to the storage locker that he's pointing to, and I pick up the uniform, and he says, "No, not that one." Well, that was for a private. And the next one was the lieutenant uniform. They're both his. We didn't know that at the time because they were all coded. So I called the curator and I said, "Can you come over and fire up the computer and punch this number into your database and see whose uniform it is?" And in the meantime, I'm asking Scotty, "Do you have a name for this person?" And he kept saying Edgar, Edward, Ed something. And it turned out to be Lieutenant Edgar Dunham.
Wow.
Well, in the midst of all of this, I had promised Edgar that we would get his uniform on display. Well, I didn't have that kind of pull at the museum. So when we were done with that rotation, we went to put the uniform back into the storage. And I got down to the second floor and walked through a screen door of an exhibit called Grandma's Attic. It was all set up like Grandma's house would be. And I walked in through the screen door and took 2 steps into the room, and I got shoved between my shoulder blades. And I turned around, and Scotty looked at me and goes, "He's not happy. You lied to him." So we got hold of the curator again and told her what had happened. And she said, "Put the uniform in my office and explain to Edgar that we will get this uniform on display." And they did. They created an entire exhibit just for Lieutenant Edgar Dunham. And when it was all set to go, they called me, and I went down there and actually sat in the room and just thanked him for allowing us to be a part of that, help him get his uniform on display. They had the uniform on display for about 2 years, and then they took it down because they had to rotate things through. And I went down there before they took it down, and I said, Edgar, you got to understand that they can't keep it up forever, so let's not cause any problems. So no issues. I think he was happy with that. Unfortunately, everybody that we know at the Oshkosh Public Museum has retired, so I don't have any connections there anymore.
Oh.
But it was a wonderful, wonderful place to train people and to investigate and just learn.
Right. I have a question for you, Tim.
Sure.
You know, you've been doing paranormal for a long time, as have I, you know, and we both know that the demonic is out there, but very far and few between. Do you have any encounters with anything that of the non-human entities? And if so, can you tell us about it?
I can't get into details right now because we're still working on it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's the one we're working on currently. We're dealing with an elemental, and it has been a pain in my rear end.
I was going to say, good luck.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where we're kind of learning on the fly, and I'm, contacting folks that, I've dealt with this stuff before and people that I respect. And that's why this case is taking so long.
Yeah.
I don't like that it's taking this long because the poor lady is just going through hell.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that we get this right for her, and however long that takes, it takes.
Yeah. Elementals are tricky. We did a private case too, and it was a huge deal. And we ended up, just giving them an offering. We planted some trees, but, like to give back to them. And the homeowners can never, eat the fruit from the tree type thing. And things have been good, but, they're just, some can be some doozers and some of them can be, okay. So
yeah, this one is displaying. It's a very, very thin line between demonic and elemental on this one. And that's about all I can say.
Yeah. Understand that.
I don't want to give away too much.
Yeah.
So it's been one of those where we kind of learn a lot about ourselves.
Yeah.
And we've had the help of Dana Stricker. I know Brandy's met Dana. Dana helped us.
I love her.
Case.
Yeah.
So we're getting there, and we're working on it. And Dana's a trooper, and she's been excellent. Todd and Michelle from my team have been great, and we're just plugging along and trying to get it right.
Right. How long have you been working on this particular case?
Since October. So it'll be 4 months. It'll be 4 months here in about a week.
Yeah. And what people, a lot of, they don't understand is like, we just don't go in there in one night and it's over. As you said, this takes time and people, we can offer our suggestions of what, they should do. And a lot of times, the people just aren't ready to make that commitment. And we're the type of group that, if they haven't done that yet, but they're still having problems down the road and they reach out to us again, we'll go back, we don't just drop them. But there are some times when, we've suggested some things and, things didn't get done. So.
Yeah. And then they're wondering why they still have the problem.
Yeah. But we don't drop them. We go back and
we'll go back and we'll help again. Yeah.
Yeah. And absolutely. I'm sure, you're the same way, Tim,
It's very rare that we only go to a home once. Even if there is activity, you're not going to solve that activity in one night.
Oh, no. Gosh, no. No.
So, we talked about, 300 plus investigations. Each house is probably 2 or 3 times at least.
Absolutely.
So, we're talking, we've probably helped about 100 families at this point.
Wow.
And it's multiple trips into the home and doing what we can to make it comfortable for them. That's really all we try to do. It's just give them comfort in their own home, because I think everybody deserves that.
Yeah.
Have you had any problems with hitchhikers throughout your investigations?
Yeah, just with me though. But honestly, I don't mind that. If they're gonna get curious and they're gonna follow somebody home, I would rather it be me than the other members of my team.
Yeah.
Just because I kind of feel like I'm equipped to handle that. I had one years ago where I was married at the time, and my ex-wife got a hold of me, and somebody was knocking at the back door. It was 2 nights after an investigation, and she turned on the light, and there was nobody there. But there's just this loud knocking on the door, and 2 nights before, I'd come into contact with this spirit, who was, it was a very emotional experience because we connected. And I think that's why this spirit followed me back home. But when I got home, I said, I understand that, Saturday night we had a connection there, and you may feel comfortable with me, but you cannot stay here. Right. And it left. A lot of it is curiosity. And then there's there for a fleeting moment. And then if you ask them to leave, they will. I've never really had a problem with something getting attached and not leaving. But I always say, you do this long enough, you probably experience everything. So it's probably coming at some point.
Could you touch? I know we got a little bit of time here. Could you touch? We talked a little bit about elementals. Could y'all talk about the differences between dealing with what is an elemental versus an earthbound spirit or whatever, and the difference in how you deal with them?
Well, I'm learning as we go. So the first thing I'll say is don't take anything I say as fact right now. But the one that we are dealing with seems like it's of the land. They live. There's a group of trees next to a lake. They live right on the lake, and it seems like it's coming from that area. And for her, when they get nasty weather, when it snows, when it rains, this elemental disappears. And she actually has a few days where things are normal. Things are quiet for her. I've leaned on people like Tim Shaw on this one. Dana Strickland helped me quite a bit. Deb DeRose. It's one of those things where I knew going in that I didn't have the answers. So I needed to reach out and find somebody that did. But even then, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But with an elemental, you're not dealing with a human spirit, at least from what I understand at this current point. So you're dealing with something else. But the strange thing about this case is there also seems to be human spirits in the home. Mm-hmm. So we have a mix. We're getting intelligent answers from a spirit. And then we have other things that are exhibiting elemental traits. So it's sifting through, and I always say every investigation is like a puzzle, and it comes down to putting that puzzle together. Somebody said it always comes down to the land. There's a lot to that, and we've even explored Native American land, Native American spirits in this case, and trying to rule that out. So it's frustrating because I know our client is sick of what's happening in the home, and we're trying to get this fixed as quick as we can, but there's really no timetable on this.
Right.
It was always my understanding too, just what I'm learning, because in this field too of paranormal, I'm learning. My understanding is the elementals are more of Mother Nature, like the elements of forest, right? They're some sort of spiritual
fire, water,
beings.
earth, yes.
Air, yes.
Air,
I was just about to ask that. I mean, a lot of people talk about elementals, and are they different? Do they have different elements that you're actually dealing with, entities? I don't even know how to. I mean, are we talking water sprites, or little fire elementals, or golems, or what are we talking about here? Because it's the problem is, I think, with a lot of stuff in the paranormal and the cryptid field, as far as that goes, a lot of it will, a lot of the different entities or phenomenon will have a blanket term over them.
Mhm.
And it's hard for especially the layperson to separate and know what we're talking about, and I'm still learning on the paranormal side, but so maybe we could get into that a little bit, and so people, if they encounter something, maybe they'll know what they're dealing with better.
The best way that I can describe what we've encountered in that home is, you said it, Gollum. I was not familiar with the movie because I don't watch movies. So I described what I was seeing, and then Deb DeRoos had also seen it, the medium that we were working with. And so I described what I was seeing, and Todd looked at me and rolled his eyes because he's a big movie guy, and pulled up a picture and said, "Is this what you're seeing?" And I said, "Yeah, it's something like that." It was. I described it as a tiny little man baby on all fours.
Mm.
And honestly, when I saw it for the first time, I kind of just laughed it off.
Right.
I didn't realize what I was seeing. And then the more that we started encountering things and the more people I started talking to, that's when we started to narrow it down and say, okay, I think we're dealing with something that we haven't dealt with before.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's a new experience. We're trying to get a hold of people that are good at what they do with this, so they can give us the best advice possible. Because at the end of the day, it's about helping the client.
Well, you probably need to talk with Krista. Krista's had, excuse me, Krista's had an encounter with an elemental. So maybe you can
what I
compare
saw,
notes.
Tim, was it looked like a troll, and it was in a lady's barn. It was in her tack room, and opened the door, and it was there, and it wasn't big. It was, I don't know, maybe 3 feet tall. Wasn't very big, and I knew it was not demonic, but I also knew it was not a ghost, and I couldn't, figure out, and I had to reach out for help as well, because I mean, it wasn't right. There was something different, and I'd heard of elementals, but I didn't really believe in them at the time until that case. I became a true believer.
But now you do.
It sounds like they could be very, very easily confused with, somebody might see one of these things the way y'all describe them and actually think they're running into a cryptid.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The approach is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as an investigator goes, and as far as getting rid of them if you can, so how would one go about knowing the difference between, like, y'all are seeing trolls and stuff, or what looks like them, versus it's a spiritual thing, I guess is what you would call it. I mean, I know if I see something that looks like a troll in my house, I may be blasting holes through my wall, but and not hitting nothing. But that it sounds to me like it could be very, very easily confused.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there any way we can tell the difference?
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say that, this, my first time encountering something like this, honestly, I've been, it's been an inner struggle, because I don't want to get it wrong. And I'm also not very, I'm not well versed in this. So it's one of those things where I'm learning as I go. And, for folks that are listening right now, they're probably like, wow, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And you're right. Yeah. It's a learning experience, and it's a growth experience for us. And hopefully, during the course of all of that and growing and learning, we don't mess it up for this lady. I mean, that's the biggest concern.
Yeah.
So, but it's an inner struggle for me, because, am I really dealing with what I think I'm dealing with?
Yeah.
I got 15 years experience, but stepping out on a limb and going, hey, I'm dealing with an elemental is something that I haven't dealt with before. And I haven't had to face, the backlash of the people that are like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be an elemental. I want it to be something simple that I can just tell this lady, hey, this is what we have to do, and things will be better. But like I said earlier, if you're in this long enough, you're going to run into things, and you
So-
either
Right.
deal with
You
them
know,
Yeah.
you've got 15 years doing this, and you're going to be bound to come up with things that you don't know how to answer, how to explain it to anybody. Hell, I seen a cryptid, and couldn't tell you today what it is. I still flip flop on what I even saw, what experiences that I have. And I got to ask you this question because I know we're going to be coming up on a break here shortly. There's two things I would like, but first of all, a bunch of people in the chat have to ask this question, being that you're from Wisconsin. Have you heard or know anything about the beasts of the Bray Road? You don't have to go into any long details, but have you heard of that? Have you come across anything like that? You probably have heard it, but is that
the only thing
about that?
I'll keep this brief because I know you want to get the break. When I first started in the field, one of the first people that I met and befriended was Linda Godfrey.
Mm-hmm.
And she recently passed away, and she was an absolute sweetheart to me. Anytime I needed help, anytime I needed her for an event, she was there in Wisconsin. It was one of those deaths where it really hit me because she was such a good person.
Yeah.
And I know that was her baby. I'd never dealt with the Beast of Bray Road. I don't know any stories on it, but I do know that it was so incredibly important to Linda. And Linda had a heart of gold, and she was a wonderful, wonderful person. So I'm glad you asked that question just so I could say something about Linda. But she was amazing. She really was. And I wish, I'm happy that I had that friendship with her, but I wish I had talked to her more about those types of things.
Right.
When we saw each other, it was just, hey, how you been doing, Linda? And how you doing, Tim? And she was just a fantastic person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said a lot of people have kind of mirrored what you said, and she must have been a wonderful person. One other thing, though, for the radio side, I'll let you do this again at the end of the show, but why don't you speak on what you got going on March 4th in Ann Arbor?
March 4th, Potographs for Pooches is doing a Potographs Parafest IV in Ann Arbor, Michigan at the Wyndham. Tickets are $60 each, and the headliners are John Zappas and Dustin Perry. If you go to potographsforpooches.com or you go to my Facebook page, the posters all over the place. You can get tickets at potographsforpooches.com. All the proceeds go to Huron Valley Humane Society, and that's where my good friend Tim Woolworth got his dog Maris. I got a chance to tour there about a year ago. Fantastic facility, and I can't wait to raise a lot of money for them.
Awesome. What we'll do when we come back in the second half, we'll talk a little bit on the paws and pooches side. That's fair. I'm sure people are asking about that, wondering what that is. And I think that has something to do with your story, if I'm not mistaken. I'm guessing. It's just my intuitive side working come to play.
Yeah.
Well, let everyone else know too, Rob, that you'll be there too.
Well, yeah.
That night too.
I was gonna let everyone know at the very end of the show. Yes, I'll be there. Ann Arbor. The girls are grabbing me. Well, they want me to come down there.
You're being kidnapped. We're
Hey,
kidnapping
there's
you.
worse people to be kidnapped by. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm happy. As long as I'm kidnapped by those two, that's fine by me. For the second half of the show, we're streaming on 3 platforms tonight: Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and the Blondes and Booze podcast. So, hey, pick your flavor or pick all 3. I know you can't do all at once, but we will be back after a 5-minute break. Subscribe to all of our channels. The super chats are open. The super thanks is open for long after the show ends. Subscribe to the channels across the board. We'll be back with Tim Maile. Tim Maile will be back in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
4 minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. We have a great guest, Tim Maile, paranormal investigator. As I mentioned earlier, we're broadcasting on BMR, Texan, Brandy, and Krista's channel, The Booze. And so me personally, I want to say to everybody, when I type, I can only type to my channel. So who all I missed on the other two sides of the platform, hello from BMR. Hello. Don't forget, on Mondays, Texas Front Porch, 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Jason McLean does something called Mysterious Library on Untold AM Radio. Jason couldn't have picked a show with a longer title. I don't know. But that's a 10 in the East. Wednesdays, Jason McLean questions everything, 9 o'clock in the East. Thursdays, Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. That night, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, 9 in the East. You need some more of the booze? Well, they give you a little woo too. Fridays, Blondes and Booze in the Woo, 9 o'clock in the East. And of course, our friend Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio. Find her on Saturday and Sunday, 10 o'clock in the East. Dave Scott's also got a fan party going on, second annual, that he has me promoting for him. If you subscribe to my Facebook or my Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob group page on Facebook, all the information, the details are there. Thanks for that. I'm going to bring up everybody. Make sure they're all ready.
My dog is
Welcome
on my lap. Sorry.
That's okay.
He wants to say hi to everybody.
Hi, Hoss.
Actually, Chris, that's a perfect segue because
Right? He knew this. He knew this was coming.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to mention, the only time that every time I have a paranormal guest on, my computer does blank out. I can be talking Dogman, I can be talking Bigfoot, Mothman. My computer's fine. Every time a paranormal person's on, I gotta reboot my computer. I don't know. I don't really believe in coincidence, but who the hell knows? So, so with that being said, Tim, we're talking about pooches. I pause and pooches. I got written down somewhere. Why don't you start off, promote or talk about that a little bit, and then the girls say you got this emphatic story that's gonna make me cry. I guess we'll see. First time for everything. But why don't we talk a little bit about the first thing, maybe a little bit more about the pooches events.
Well, in order to talk about the events, you got to know why we do them.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Go right ahead. We got time.
I'll start with the story. I mentioned earlier in the show that I purchased this home in 2006, and it had things happening, footsteps and voices and bangs on the wall and things of that nature within the first week or so. During that time, what I didn't mention was I was going through some really bad things personally. Just one of those points in my life where I didn't think anything could ever get any better. Suffering from severe depression. It all stemmed from a failed relationship, which when I look back on it now seems kind of silly. But at the time, I didn't think life was ever going to get any better. But when I bought the home, the whole idea was to get a dog because I absolutely love dogs. And this is my first home and my first opportunity to have my own dog. So I looked online and I found, I was looking for yellow labs, and I found a yellow lab pit bull mix that was rescued from the home he was in. He was beaten horribly. He was 6 months old. And I had to talk the shelter into letting me come to visit him because this dog didn't like men. They finally agreed to let me come and visit him. His name at the time was Striker, which seemed kind of weird for a dog that had been abused. They let me come down and visit him, and they sat me in this room, and they opened up a door, and all I can say is it was like a hallway of kennels. And they went about halfway down, and they opened up the kennel, and this puppy came out and went the wrong way. And if you ever met Murray, that was his thing. He never did anything right the first time. But they turned him around, and he saw me, and I had gotten down on a knee, and this little puppy that wasn't supposed to want anything to do with me ran to me and jumped into my arms. And it just felt right. I got to go outside and play with him for like an hour, and I could tell that this was going to be my guy, but then paperwork gets in the way and background checks and all that stuff. And I wasn't able to get him right away. I would get him 2 weeks later. They made me wait forever, but I brought him home 2 weeks later. I renamed him Murray because I wanted him to have a very gentle name. I wanted people to hear the name and go, hey, that's, that makes me calm. And Murray, the first time he came into the house, he was seeing and hearing the things that I was experiencing. And it was the first time that I didn't feel crazy in the home. I remember walking in the door and he followed something up the stairs. First time we walked into the house. He and I were inseparable. He was my man. And it was sometime in January of 2007. And I don't necessarily know the day because I think it would drive me crazy. But saying that out loud, I know it's been 16 years now. The depression got the best of me. And I was sitting in my bathroom with the largest knife I had in the house. And I was going through each family member and each friend one by one and coming up with a reason why it'd be okay if I wasn't here anymore. And as I was doing that, I felt something on my left arm, and I looked down, and it was Murray. He had rested his chin on my arm. And I looked down at him, and I crumpled to the floor, and I cried, and I held him for like an hour. It was the only thing that snapped me out of it. And for folks that have ever been in that dark place, you're not thinking rationally. There's not a rational thought in your body. And if he had not walked in at that moment, I would not be here. From that moment on, he and I were no longer dog and owner. We were father and son. And I love that dog more than any other human I have ever encountered in my life. He and I, like I said, we were inseparable. And as I started to get more opportunities within the paranormal, they give you a table at these events and they say, hey, sell whatever you want. And at the time, I didn't really have anything, and that was fine with me. But I looked at that empty space and I thought there's got to be something that we can do with this space and create a legacy for Murray and help animals and just let people know just how special he was. And in 2013, we created Potographs for Pooches. And in the beginning, it was just photos of Murray and I, and Murray would stamp them. And I think I have it here. Yes, I do. It's always right here. That's the original stamp of Murray's paw print. And we would stamp the photos, and I would personalize them. And we'd sell them for $10 a piece. And I remember the first event we did, we sold one, and we raised $10, and it was deflating. But it was a start. Everybody has to start somewhere. And we didn't really have any expectations. I just wanted to do something. And it was important to me that people understand that he was special and he saved my life. And I wanted his story. And I always say it's his story. I wanted his story to mean something to somebody. When I first started telling his story at events, I didn't understand. I was naive. I did not get how it was going to touch people, how people were going to rally behind it. Eventually we would raise like $100 at an event. And then there were events that would advertise what we were doing, and we'd raise $200, $300. And then my good friend John Cassidy said, why don't we do an exclusive event here in Michigan? And all the ticket sales from the investigation and the lecture, they'll go to the shelter. And we kept the prices really low, but we sold it out and we raised $741 for the shelter. And I was on top of the world. It was the biggest deal ever. And I remember every time I came home from an event, I would sit down with Murray and I would tell him how we did. In my mind, he was excited about it. And, eventually, the paranormal field just wrapped its arms around this thing and would not let it fail. 2019, Murray passed away. And that was the toughest day of my life because I had always dreaded his mortality. I didn't know what would happen to me because I lived every day for him. Every day I would honestly go and whisper into his ear, thank you. And I didn't know who I was going to be without him. And we pushed forward, and we had an event that weekend that we had planned 5 days after Murray passed. I had to get up in front of a group of people and be somewhat coherent. And we raised $3,000 at that event. And then there was events in Michigan where we raised $5,000, and then we had a $7,500 event. And then just before COVID hit, the fake check is behind me. We raised over $13,000 at one event. And the numbers just kept piling up. And it was sad because everything happened after Murray passed. Like, it really took off when he was gone. But we created that legacy. The legacy is set. And as far as I'm still here, or as long as I'm still here, that legacy will remain. I miss my boy terribly, but just 2 weeks after he passed, I was contacted by a shelter in Wisconsin, and they said we have pit lab puppies coming up from Alabama, and you need to pick which one you want. And I got contacted by a very good friend of mine, April Rohn, a psychic medium, and she said, Murray has a message for you. He loves the fact that you're going to get a puppy, but he can be the only boy, so it has to be a girl. And that's why I have Ray, and she's a girl. And originally, he was going to be named Ray because it was the last 3 letters in Murray's name. But she pushes forward the legacy. We do events. We're doing 4 events. 2 of them have been announced now. We're doing another one in May and one more in September that I've yet to announce. But one in Ann Arbor, Michigan, March 4th, and then back here in Wisconsin, in Pembine, Wisconsin, March 18th. With some fantastic folks from the paranormal field, guys like John Zaffis, Dustin Perry, Shane Pittman is appearing in Wisconsin for me again. Dan Class. I mean, if I go through the list, I'll forget people, and I don't want to do that. But it's like I said, it's one of those things where everywhere I go now, people, they either know the story or they find out about the story, and it means something to them. And I couldn't have asked for anything better than that people remember my boy and what he did. And the part of it that I really didn't expect was all the folks that would reach out to me that are dealing with their own issues. Because a lot of people don't like talking about depression, anxiety, mental health. It's just, for some, it's still a taboo subject. And when you open up in front of a room full of people, you're going to have folks that are going to come up to you afterwards and they want to tell you their story. And I will listen to anybody's story for as long as I do this, because they need to tell somebody. And if I'm that somebody, then that's great. I mean, I got to do an event with Krista and Brandy in Missouri in September, and I did my presentation, and there was a small line of people to hug me, and then there was a special girl named Holly that came up to me in tears, and I could tell that she needed to hear that message. And the message is that things will get better. You have to trust the fact that things will get better. You just need to keep fighting. And, I continue to tell the story because everybody looks at what I get to do and they're like, wow, you've got it, man. You have this great life. You get to do all these fantastic things. I do, but there are mornings when I wake up and my brain tells me that I am a piece of shit and I can't avoid it. But I need to push through that. And, you talked about earlier, after investigations and being emotionally drained. If I do too many events in a row, I'm a mess. And I was running on fumes last fall. And I mentioned it before we went on air, but I disappeared from like the end of September till the beginning of January. Like I just had to get away because I'd given so much of me to other people that I needed to recharge. And, I'm getting ready for the event season here coming up. We start in March and it doesn't end until like October this year. So it's one of those things though, where like I never understood how my words could affect other people. And, there's a lot of folks that want to give me a whole lot of credit for this, but it'll always be Murray's story. It'll always be his legacy. Because if he wasn't there, I wouldn't have experienced any of this stuff. And I wouldn't be here for any of it. And, it's a very special pup. And last September, we actually went over the $100,000 raised mark with potographs for pooches. And you think about how many animals we've been able to save with that money. And not just the animals, but those folks, those people that get those animals and those people that have heard this story. I don't know where people are at in their life and what they're thinking, I just hope that when they hear what I have to say, that it means something to them. Not everybody has a Murray, but you have something that you're passionate about. Live for that. And I lived for Murray for, 13 years, 13 fantastic years. And, it's been 3 years since he's been gone, and I still every day talk to him. He's my dude, and he's the reason I'm here, and I still keep fighting. And I when he passed, my dad passed when I was very young. And I had worried about Murray's mortality for quite some time. And I always told Murray, I was like, when it's your time, you got to find Grandpa, and you got to let Grandpa, you got to have Grandpa let me know that he has you. Otherwise, I'm coming to find you. And that sounds exactly what it sounds like. I didn't want him to be alone. The thought of him being alone terrified me. And the morning after Murray passed, I woke up and I had 5 messages from different mediums. And every message started with, "It's very important that Murray lets his dad know that he's okay." And he held up his end of the bargain. So I'm here. We're pushing forward. And I got to keep my promise to my boy. Dad's not going to do anything stupid to himself. I made that promise. So sometimes life gets a little overwhelming, and I got to step back and I got to decompress. But at the end of the day, a promise is a promise, and I never lied to my boy.
Real quick, Tim, you mentioned Holly from last year. Night Marionette Productions commented to you. She said Holly is doing good now. You helped her a lot. So it's just what you do,
I'm still in contact with her. I'll send her messages every once in a while. If she's listening right now, she's a very, very special little lady, and she's got a lot to give the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm just happy that our paths crossed, and I was able to mean something in that given time. It makes what we do. It makes all the traveling worth it when you know that your words have meant something to somebody. And honestly, it makes it easier to go to the next event because there might be somebody there too that needs to hear you.
Right.
Wow. That is
everybody's speechless. We're like,
I'm typically, not at a loss for words, but that is a beautiful story. And, it covers a lot of things in life, right? It covers the saving of a life, helping pull out of depression. A lot of people suffer from. I had a couple of relatives I wish they would have had it, Murray, because they're no longer with us because of suffering from these things. Your message is strong, and I can see why you do these events, and the names of the events now certainly makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And I commend you for that. And it's a strong message because what you talk about is serious. It happens every day. Again, I think a lot of us in this community or any community has suffered this. You pulled through because of a friend, and it was your boy, right? And I wish we all had a boy or a sister that suffer from this. And in your case, you got to be on top of the world. And thank you so much for that, man.
Thank you. The event we're doing in Ann Arbor is very special. It's the biggest event we've ever done. People compliment us on the poster a lot. When I called John Zaffis to see if he would do the event, I had the poster in mind. The font for the poster is called the Godfather font. And the poster has John Zaffis in the upper left corner, and it has Murray sitting underneath him like he's sitting near the Godfather. And when I announced John for the event, I said, Murray finally has a Godfather. These events are different than any normal paranormal event. Everybody there is there for one purpose. Like how much money can we raise for this shelter? Brandy experienced it in Ripon, Wisconsin when we went over $100,000. We were within like $500, and I had mentioned something before we went to our final break. We had one more speaker that was coming on in a half hour, and I mentioned something about being $500 short. And my friend Dinah grabbed a bucket from the bar and went around and raised $400 in about 10 minutes because people wanted to be there for us to go over $100,000, and we made it. We made it over $100,000, and part of the reason I backed away for so long was that we had hit that goal. It wasn't always the goal, but as we got closer to it, it became the goal that everybody wanted to see us get to $100,000. And once we got to it, I kind of just looked in the mirror and I said, "What now?" I mean, we've accomplished what we wanted to do. So what now? And I was kind of lost for a few months, if I'm being honest. I'm sure once we get to closer to the March event, I'll be right back and, doing what we need to do. But at that moment in time, you just kind of look in the mirror and go, what do you do now? What? I don't want to come up with another goal because it was never about that. But once you hit a number like that, it's like, what do you do once you feel like you've accomplished what you set out to do? We just keep pushing forward and raising as much money as we can, and finding shelters to work with that are full of good people.
Well, what I find amazing is that you have these big names in the paranormal, and they just continually keep coming, and just keep showing up for these events for you and for Murray, and I think that's just great. I think it's great.
There's a lot of great folks that have done events for us. There's a lot of folks that are on shows right now that are asking to do events. But there's only so many events that I do. So it's a good problem to have. How do I fit all of these celebrities into our events?
Right.
Well, we were lucky and thankful that you came to our event. We definitely appreciated you doing that for us.
I had a lot of fun. I didn't so much enjoy the drive to Missouri because God is that cold. But
right.
But I had a lot of fun at the event. It's always like, even tonight, I posted on Facebook, this is a brand new audience for the most part. Folks that haven't heard me before. And it's nice to do events or do shows where it's a brand new audience and people haven't heard the story before. I keep going back to Michigan, and some of those folks have heard this story like 20 times because I do 3 Michigan events a year. And they continue to come back, because that message means something to them, and Murray means something to them. And the greatest compliment I ever got while doing a podcast is I was introduced as Murray's dad.
Yeah.
They didn't even say Tim Maile. They just said, "Welcome to the show, Murray's dad." And when he passed away, I posted this big long, I guess, obituary. And one of the things in there was the greatest thing I've ever accomplished was being his dad.
Wow.
And, I was so proud of him, and still am. But we've accomplished some amazing things together, and we're going to continue to do that. And who knows what the next, it's been 10 years. It'll be 10 years in April. Who knows where it goes from here, but we'll just enjoy the ride. And if it all goes away tomorrow, I'll be sad, but I'll know that we did some good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what's really cool too is, like, a lot of times you go to different conferences, different events. It doesn't even matter what the subject is, right? A lot of times you don't know what maybe your donation is, or what the price of a ticket is, or what it's for, or maybe it's kind of sketchy. Not all, but some, you just don't know. At least with this, it's been running for such a long time now. People know, hey, now you feel good about donating to something like this, right? You know where it's going, you know the story behind it, which makes it more that much worth giving out and shelling out some money. And that's what I love about it. And I thank you for the story once again, because and I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes, and it's, again, appreciative.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Like I said,
Yeah,
brand new audience,
absolutely.
and just being able to reach some folks. If you look up Potographs for Pooches on Facebook, you can contact me there. Potographsforpooches.com. Hit the events tab and go and check out the 2 events that are listed. If you can't make it to an event, there's a donate tab on the homepage, and
And you
whatever
can
is
also
donated.
get cool shirts and
Yeah,
sweatshirts too.
yeah. We have merchandise. You have to go to my personal page for the link for that, because I
Okay.
am not technologist.
I'm trying
I'm
to.
not technological,
Yeah, I hear
and
you.
I can't get it to actually link to the website. But yeah, there's some amazing stuff on there. The Kids for Murray was actually Brandy's daughter's idea, and she did a wonderful job with that, and she helped me sell sweatshirts when I was in Missouri. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we have for sale as far as merchandise and just experiences. And the Ann Arbor event in March, right before I came on air, I was informed that we have gotten a church that we're going to do an investigation at the Friday night before.
Oh,
So
Oh, cool.
so tickets are
Uh-oh.
not on sale. Tickets are not on sale yet, because I didn't know about it until literally 25 minutes before we came on air.
well, just
So
mark me for a yes.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna
I'm with Brandy.
Or a
get
yes. I probably got
the
about 7 or
details.
8 more family
Yeah.
members. Yeah,
We're gonna
you're
get the
you're full.
details all set, and,
Yeah.
and who's going to be in town early enough to do that. And Friday afternoon, if people are there, we're also heading over to the shelter for a tour.
Mhm.
Cool.
The last time I went to the shelter, they had a dog named Zira, and she was a pit bull, and she had been there for like 8 months, and
Oh.
it was listed on her kennel, and I blew up the social media and all my pages, and that dog got a home in 2 weeks.
Fantastic.
So the group of people that follow me, I'll never say that they're fans, because I don't have any.
Yeah. Well,
I got friends, and those friends have really stepped up for me. And if I post something about a dog and I say, "Hey, let's find this dog a home," 9 times out of 10 it happens. So that's it's a good group of people. And like I said, they wrap their arms around Potographs for Pooches, and Murray's legacy set.
That's awesome.
yeah. I think that's outstanding, Tim. And it's actually coming up at the end of the show. It's perfect timing. And what I love about this show is, I love all the shows we do, but what I love really about this show, and a lot, we've had a couple too where there was a message sent, and I think today's message was awesome, and I do appreciate it.
Mhm.
Is there any personal social media platforms people can find you on? Certainly, I'm going to work with the girls to market you on my Facebook with the ticket information for the upcoming events. I'll do that. The girls will do it. But any other sites that we can look you up, like immediately? You have a website or anything?
You can go to foxcitiesparanormalteam.com. That's the website for the paranormal team. Potographsforpooches.com is for the charity. If you're feeling real adventurous, you can find me on TikTok. I can't promise. I can't promise you're going to enjoy that stuff, because I let loose on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. I see him every now and again, and I'm like, oh my God.
Well, TikTok is you got to play around. You just got to let loose.
Yeah.
I got you, Tim.
If
I don't know where he comes up with this stuff. I don't.
you can find me on Facebook, just Tim Maile, Maile. Send me a friend request tonight. There's a good chance I'll accept it. I'm at like 4,950 friends, and then Facebook says I can't have any more. So
yeah.
But you can follow me, keep in touch, send me a message. Let me know you listened tonight, and hopefully make plans to go to Ann Arbor.
Yes, come to Ann Arbor.
I'll drop some of the links too on the About page on my YouTube channel, and I'll drop it on Texas, and the girls will do the same.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, because if you're close and you're in Ann Arbor, just go. The Blondes are going to be there. BMR is going to be there.
Mhm.
Him's going to be there. geez, we're gonna have a party.
Yeah, I think Letitia Nunnally, she's going to tag along with us. She's
Yeah.
coming to it.
She's coming too.
Yeah,
We're just gonna bring people.
Well, it
we're going to
sounds like
raise some money for you, Tim.
oh yeah.
For sure. No, I definitely appreciate everything you do. I think you're a great human being.
I try to be okay. I have
Okay in that book.
I have my moments. So I am far from perfect. I mess up all the time. The date for the event is March 4th in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There's also a bunch of gallery readings. They're $25 a piece. That goes to the charity. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful weekend. There's just a lot of stress leading up to it. And if we could just magically sell 500 tickets, the stress would be gone.
Yeah, but you have like what, 5 psychic mediums that are going to be doing gallery readings all day?
Yeah, and again, I don't want to name them all because I'll forget them because I don't have the poster in front of me.
Right.
But yeah, we've got gallery readings going on during the day. A lot of first-time people coming to the event, which is cool.
Awesome.
A lot of folks that have contacted me and said, "Hey, I just want to be a part of this. Is there a way for me to be here?" And anybody that wants to come for free, that's the best kind.
Yep, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to shut it down. Tex, any final thoughts?
Tim, I just want to say thank you, and I want to real quick jump back on the the having Murray you not being alone and everything, and I just want to put it out there to everybody. If you're dealing with this, or dealing with having a problem just dealing with life in general, I want you to know that you're not alone. And if you don't have anybody that you can you can reach out to, you can always reach out to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's anybody on our team, and I'm sure including Tim, because you don't have to go through these things alone. You really, really don't.
Right.
And because I have not given up hope on humanity like some have, and nobody on my team has. And we generally care about all of our listeners' well-being. And we want you to know that you're not alone out there. We're not here just for paranormal stories. You need an ear to bend, you reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to be there for you.
Absolutely.
And Tim, I just want to say thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. It was good to meet the two of you. I knew Kristen and Brandy coming in, but yeah, you guys keep in touch. Thank you for the platform and letting me talk about this.
You're welcome back anytime, brother.
Yeah, you're welcome, Tim. Thank you so much. Well, that'll conclude Beyond BMR. Great edition, great show. For Brandy, for Krista, for Tex, for Tim. Until next time on Beyond BMR. I think, what's today? Tuesday, Wednesday. Today's Tuesday, Wednesday. Today's Tuesday, right? Well, Wednesday, check out Jason's shows, and then we'll get it started from there.
And I'll be doing the cryptid report tonight on Spaced Out Radio at 1 a.m. Central.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. We'll see you there. Thanks to everybody in chat. Thanks to everybody that's going to listen later. We do appreciate you. BMR and the rest of the group, we are out.
Good night.